Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here with just a quick video. So at the time I post this, Microsoft just announced kind of a cool update. They're expanding their original Xbox Backwards Compatibility program with the Xbox One and Xbox One X, and of course S as well. For those who don't know, basically last year Microsoft announced at E3 that they would be adding original Xbox Backwards Compatibility to the Xbox One, and they would be doing it in phases similar to the way they do the Xbox 360 Backwards Compatibility program for Xbox One. However, they admitted that this would not be as robust as their attempt with the 360. I mean, that one gets updates every couple weeks. In this case, while the original Xbox has nearly 1,000 titles, when they finally did launch the program, I believe it was in like November of 2017. I think it was November. It might have been, maybe it was October. They only had 13 titles available. Again, that's obviously a very small percentage, but again, it wasn't really meant to be a big dominating thing because honestly they don't get much out of doing this other than the coolness factor. Well anyway, today they announced they're adding 19 new titles to the program. So I actually brought out all the titles that will be added to that, and we're going to go over them in a moment. So basically the way it works is if you have any one of these titles effective the dates that these go live, I believe this goes live on the April 17th, and I believe this group goes live on April 26th. Once you put the disc into your console, it will simply recognize the disc and download a digital Xbox One compatible build of the game. So you don't actually have to rebuy it digitally. Now keep in mind, it doesn't actually read off of the disc, it doesn't play the game from the disc, it just detects what the disc is and downloads the game accordingly. So if you're not connected to the internet, it simply isn't going to work. While a lot of people, including me, don't really like the way that it works, I have to admit, it's a free service. You don't have to use it. It's just kind of a nice bonus feature. And of course, it has a lot of additional benefits like the emulator they use really enhances the crap out of the game. It's running them at substantially higher resolutions than they were ever meant to run. They load a lot faster, you know, that kind of stuff. It's really very cool. But a lot of that information is not new. The new information is specifically the titles and the dates they're in. So because I happen to have all these games, although I did have to run out and get a few of them for the purposes of this video, and you know, to add to the collection because I want to get the full original Xbox set at some point. So that was kind of a good excuse to round up a couple more of them. I decided to do this video here just to show you which titles are out there right now. Granted, you can find that in any article, but what the hell, let's all just talk about it because it's kind of fun. Because I also wanted to let people know, yes, I know they updated it. I know, because I got a crap ton of tweets about it. I know it's a thing. I'm excited. I'm happy about it too. But these are the games that will be going live on April 17th. First up is Blinx the Time Sweeper. At one time, this was kind of Microsoft's attempt at a mascot, if anybody kind of remembers back to that original Xbox era. Around the time this game came out, mascots were still kind of a thing, and you know, obviously Nintendo's always had Mario, Sega's always had Sonic, and Sony and Microsoft have always kind of struggled with that. Obviously Microsoft eventually settled on Master Chief, but I think they were looking for a more kid-friendly icon. But yeah, regardless, this was a thing. There is a sequel to this game, although there's no reports yet of that being necessarily compatible, and this game was made by Microsoft Studios, so or at least owned by them, so it's not really surprising that this would be on the list. And next up is Breakdown by Namco. Honestly, I don't really remember much about this game, just kind of a FPS type of game from what I do recall, but also originally, at least, only on Xbox, and I guess it stays that way. This was a big deal back in the day. Conker Live and Reloaded, the Conker remake, which is kind of interesting now, because if you're a Conker's Bad Fur Day fan, both the original game and of the remake, the Xbox One is now the place to go because you have the remake available through this, and you actually have the original N64 version through Rare Replay. So by that kind of process, I guess, interestingly, the Xbox One now has both versions of the game. So that's very cool. And I believe that some of these, I don't know yet, I guess, for sure, but it would be kind of cool if some of these have online support, because this also did have a lot of live connectivity back in the day, so it might get it again. We will see. Moving on. One that I had to run out and get is this, the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind Game of the Year Edition. There's also a regular edition. I don't know yet if they are supporting both. You might put the disc in and just get the vanilla version without all the DLC that's in the Game of the Year edition, or you might put the regular one in and it comes with all the DLC from the Game of the Year edition. Don't know yet, but that still is a thing. Either way, this game will be supported. I hope it's the Game of the Year edition with all the DLC. That would be more logical, but either way, Morrowind is now going to be available. Next up is Hunter the Reckoning from Interplay. Actually, just commenting on this again, Bethesda has always been very supportive of the Xbox programs with backwards compatibility, so it's no real surprise they included that. Back on this though, Interplay, Hunter the Reckoning. This was just one of those kind of like random titles, I guess. I don't really know what the motivation for this one was specifically, but I'm glad that they included it. It was also one I had to go out and get. Then Jade Empire Limited Edition, which is an entity of Microsoft Studios and was originally made by BioWare. So yeah, definitely cool that one comes out. I know that when the program launched, there was a whole hell of a lot of people requesting this one, so along with Morrowind actually. So very cool that they listened to the requests that people had. This one I know was also up there because I was one of those voices. Panzer Dragoon Orta, of course Sega's fourth Panzer Dragoon game, excluding the Game Gear game. It's also a good sign because it is true. Something I suggested last year when they started this program and ultimately when they even did the first wave of updates was I knew Sega would be on board at some point. They are always very cooperative and love making money off their catalog titles as opposed to making new content. But yes, this was, it just seemed logical to me. Although it is a little surprising because it is ultimately the only Sega title on here. Spoilers, I guess. But at least it means they're on board with the program. So that's definitely cool. And back in the day, man, when this came out, this was one of the big titles to try and push the Xbox, especially in the Japanese markets, because this was supposed to be a big Dreamcast game that never got released and ultimately settled on the Xbox, and it was supposed to really show the gamers in the West, like this is a real gamers console. Look, Sega's on board with one of these big franchises you really like, and of course in Japan it was supposed to get people more involved with the console itself and kind of trust Xbox as a brand, saying if Sega trusts them, you should trust them too. I mean, they even had a special Panzer Dragoon Orta Edition original Xbox, but it never really led to that. That said, it's still there. It's pretty cool. Cool game. And the other one that's not, I can't say surprising, it's just kind of there. SSX3, an EA title. It's not surprising at all. EA would be on board with this. Just a sports game that honestly, I know a lot of people really like this series. I've never really been on board with that, but there you go. That's a thing. So anyway, that's the first wave of updates. And I guess a week later, we're going to get more, which is awesome. The first one up will be Destroy All Humans by the ill-fated THQ. This is actually a really, really awesome game and originally developed by Pandemic, who will be relevant in a bit. I don't know who actually owns the rights to this now. Whoever acquired it from the THQ liquidation, I guess. But either way, that's coming and that's really cool. No word yet on the sequel. Also, this is obviously a similar theme as I just mentioned. Also by THQ and developed by Pandemic, we have Full Spectrum Warrior. I'm sure that's not a coincidence. No word on the sequel to this yet being supported, but this game will be coming, obviously a military tactical type of game. And again, developed by Pandemic, but this time by LucasArts. We have Mercenaries Playground of Destruction. Now, LucasArts no longer exists. Disney acquired all of their assets, so it would suggest that Disney might also be the owners of these. I honestly don't know. But whoever is obviously cooperative and playing ball with it, because if you're not really aware of the situation, Microsoft doesn't have the right to just go in and just make whatever titles they want compatible. They have to find the original owners of all of these games, and they have to get their permission to do this. And you might be like, well, why? They made the discs originally, why can't you just do it? As I mentioned earlier, because they're not allowing, the console isn't pulling the game off the disc. If it was, then they wouldn't necessarily need their consent. They need their consent because they're essentially reselling digital versions of these if you want to. So for example, if you don't own the disc for Mercenaries and you're like, oh, I loved that game back in the day, I want to buy it, I don't want to go out and find the real disc, I want to download it digitally, which shame on you, but if that's what you want to do, it's fine. They will have this available for sale on the Xbox Live Store digitally. That money has to go to somebody. It isn't all going to Microsoft. It has to go to whoever owns the rights. That's essentially the reason for this. They just have to cut new deals and then actually make the games work. So it's a slower process because, let's be honest, there probably isn't that much demand outside of like super fans like us. But regardless, it's still coming and it's great. So Mercenaries. Then another one I had to run out and find, MX Unleashed, also by THQ. Again, I'm assuming this was all kind of part of some package deal, whoever owns this. I'm thinking it's Disney, but I don't know. This one is actually, to me, the most interesting of the bunch. Not for the game itself, but because of what it implies. This is Panzer Elite Action Fields of Glory. Now, if you're in the States or Canada and you've never heard of this game, don't feel ashamed. This never came out here. This is a European exclusive. And while, to be honest with you, I haven't really played any of it, the reason it's interesting to me is it implies that regional exclusivity doesn't matter with this program. I always knew, like, we had King of Fighters, I think it was NeoWave, was part of the first update. That game never came out in Europe, but if you were in Europe and you happen to have the American disc, you could pop it in and it would work. This is kind of the exact opposite. If you're in North America and you happen to have this European release, you can pop it in and it's going to work, which is awesome to me because it means that the barriers for the region coding not only are gone, but it's not even an issue like socially. Like, they don't care if, like, that game only came out in Europe, fine, it's still a game that came out on the console. We can resell digital, and if you happen to have the disc, great. That's awesome because games like Metal Wolf Chaos in Japan, which is like exceedingly expensive, very hard to find, and also quite quality game, could actually be released through this program so that more people can get it, at least digitally, if they want to just play it. And for those of us who have the disc, we can then use it. So I'm glad that's coming down. I think that's really cool that this just proves that, hey, just because it's like an somewhat obscure, less frankly, an obscure PAL exclusive, doesn't matter, it's still coming over here. I like that. And then a couple of games that I was the most excited by, Star Wars Battlefront, also owned by LucasArts, or at one time, and developed by Pandemic. This game is fucking awesome. If you haven't played it, you really, really should. But I could forgive you if you've played Star Wars Battlefront 2. Also made by LucasArts and developed by Pandemic. This is one of my favorite games of all time. Other than Shenmue 2, is probably my favorite game on the original Xbox. Yeah, absolutely fantastic game. And I really hope that all of the DLC that they created for these two games originally is supported, especially because it is one of the few instances where, when I was playing these on the 360, through the 360's backwards compatibility program, I actually bought those DLC packs for these games, and then they were lost through updates, because that's just what happens. Never trust digital content. I really don't. But in this case, I hope that their system is smart enough to know, hey, you bought that on the 360 like, 12 years ago or whatever. Fine, it'll be supported now. I kind of doubt it, but it would be nice, because I would really love to have this full game experience again. Another one I had to run out and get, which was funny because I think it's the only Star Wars game for the original Xbox I did not have, so this was a really kick in the pants to get it. Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. The sequel was actually already added to this. It was Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Knight 2 something, or I forget the full name of it. That game was actually supported in the original wave. This one is now supported in the second wave, which is really very cool. And obviously sticking with that theme, there's no love lost on Star Wars through this program. Star Wars Jedi Starfighter was added to the program as well, or will be. This was actually a pretty cool game back in the day. I remember playing Starfighter a lot more, especially on PS2, and then when I got the Xbox version, that was better, and I played more of it. Jedi Starfighter was more of the same. It was serviceable. It wasn't an amazing game, at least as far as what I remember, but it was fun. It's basically a piloting game where you shoot down, ships and stuff. It was kind of the poor man's Star Fox. That's kind of what it was, but with Star Wars, especially Attack of the Clones themed content. It was okay. Then another one that got added that people were very excited about, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords. The first one was part of the original update, and so now they added the second one, so that's very exciting for a lot of people, I'm sure. People really, really love these games. Again, LucasArts, I'm thinking it just had to be Disney being super cooperative, and because the final game also supports that theory, Star Wars Republic Commando, which is a really great, lost, historically, FPS based using the Star Wars license. It takes a weirder, darker, odd tone, almost like an Elseworlds comic book type of story with Star Wars, because it just doesn't, it's not visually similar to most Star Wars content, but it's still really, really cool. It was a cool FPS. I only played it once, like, 15 years ago or whatever, but it was really very cool at the time. So yeah, that is basically it. The only other thing really I can note about this that's interesting is I had two predictions, well, I guess three predictions, and here's how they panned out. One, I said Sega would get involved. I was correct about that. One, I was very specific that I thought a game called Sphinx something or other would be added to this program. I was like super confident about it. I was drinking the Kool-Aid hard on that, and I'm sure like, well, why did you think that? Because I kept getting emails from the company that was making it saying they were re-releasing the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube Classic on, iPhone and Android and all these other things. And I was certain, I was like, well, they're mentioning the Xbox right there. I'll bet this will be part of the program. It's not. It might be eventually, we don't know, but obviously I was wrong about that. And the other thing that I said that is so far is holding true with one vague exception is that I figured that none of the games that get added to this wouldn't already be compatible with the Xbox 360 emulator. To rephrase that, every single one of these games for the original Xbox was made compatible with the Xbox 360. There's a whole host of original Xbox games that were never made compatible with the Xbox 360. As of this date, none of those non-compatible games were added to the Xbox One. Following my line of logic? So every single one of these will work on a 360. And that's interesting. The only kind of exception to that, and this is just because of region coding, is the European Panzer Elite Action Fields of Glory. Because I don't have a European or Australian Xbox 360, I can't play this because the disc is region locked. My guess though is this is actually 360 compatible, I just can't test it personally. So that's like the one quasi exception. But yeah, other than that, I don't think there's really anything else to say. So I hope that if you guys are interested in the backwards compatibility program, that you run out, pick up these games. I would say support it, but that's, you know, supporting it would be buying the digital versions. Let's keep it real. I'm not the one giving them money. Potentially you are the one doing that. But I'm excited just as, you know, an older retro gamer who just loves having the ability to use these things on a newer generation of tech, especially because of all the little perks and stuff that will come with that, especially whenever I get an Xbox One X. That'll be great, because that thing really takes these games to a whole nother visual level, which is really very cool. So that's it. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you all later.